This was actually a video project by RedScareTV, which was originally planned by me, Mason, or Machiavelli Steiner, and Eric the Red. But for various different reasons, I will be doing this solo myself. However, this will still be part of RedScareTV. The topic is debunking a really ridiculous conspiracy theory that the Bolsheviks were funded by the Wall Street, which is utterly ridiculous. But yeah, let's get to the point. So, I will be actually dealing with the origin and the sources of this claim, which come from a guy named Anthony C. Sutton, and from a book he himself wrote called Wallstreet and World Revolution, and this specific claim is in chapter 4. First of all, you have to say that all this makes no real sense. He talks about Olaf Aschenberg mainly, who was a socialist banker and great sympathizer of the Bolsheviks, and he was a left-winger too. And his claim here is that he funded the Bolshevik Revolution, which is partly true and partly not. First of all, yes, he did help to fund the Bolsheviks. He definitely helped to rebuild the Bolshevik economy and expand the Bolshevik capital. But in reality, it mainly came from the Kremlin itself and from the confiscated riches of the Russian rich people, mainly the Tsars, and the church, which were massive amounts of money, which created massive amounts of funds. Because can you imagine how much money those people actually hoarded? The Tsars and the church, they amassed massive amounts of money over the centuries, which the Bolsheviks confiscated, which was used to build up their own economy, their own banking system, and their own banks. The investments from Olaf Aschenberg were actually only a small part. However, the main claim here is that Olaf Aschenberg funded the Bolshevik Revolution by the Wall Street funding him, which is total bullshit because reading the whole chapter, I see no reference to Wall Street at all. Olaf Aschenberg himself is from Sweden and of Swedish origin, and he started by being a banker in Sweden himself, and he expanded to Germany and worked closely together with German bankers shortly before the war ended, and especially after the war, 1920. As the monarchy in Germany fell and the Weimar Republic was founded, and of course expanded to Russia too, and aided the Bolsheviks and the Bolshevik banking system. Now moving to the first part of chapter 4, which deals with Olaf Aschberg being in New York. He went to New York in 1916 to open exchange and trade markets with America. And while he was there, trying to open exchange markets and do business with America, he made claims like, quotes, "The opening for American capital and American initiative, with the awakening brought by the war, will be countrywide when the struggle is over. There are now many Americans in Petrograd, representatives of business firms, keeping in touch with the situation, and as soon as the change comes, a huge American trade with Russia should spring up." Quote end. And in the next part, ironically, it says that Olaf Aschberg, with his own bank, Njarbanken, which was the first bank he founded, as said, in Sweden, were tunneling the funds from Njarbanks to Germany, and from there to Bolshevik revolutionaries. And yeah, so basically he was taking money from American imperialists, or rather private bankers, and tunneling them directly to the Bolshevik revolutionaries. So in a sense, he actually ripped American private bankers off and essentially lied to them. Remember that he was a socialist and a leftist, and he strongly supported the Bolsheviks. However, yeah, to the essence, my question here is, how is this in any way connected to the Wall Street? How are private bankers connected to the Wall Street? Do these few private American bankers represent the Wall Street? I don't think so. So yeah, this whole claim and this whole book, when it comes down to the Soviet part or the Bolshevik part in the book, it just makes no fucking sense at all. It just goes on and on with all this shit, with all these claims, how and all these sources, how money was tunneled from America or Sweden or Germany to Russia, mainly under the order of Olaf Aschberg, who was connected to all these banks and actually owned many of them himself. And yeah, how is this all connected to the Wall Street funding this? It was Olaf Aschberg funding the Bolshevik Revolution, partly as said. Actually, he only funded a small part. As said, most of it came from the Kremlin and what the Bolsheviks obtained from the revolution, mainly from rich Tsars and rich people and the church. This book just has no fucking logic at all. It just goes on and on with Olaf Aschberg and how some banks founded the Bolsheviks and other banks were interconnected with each other and how they transferred money, etc. And actually it's a very incomplete version of this too. There's actually far more to this banking history and there are far more banks actually involved. But he just leaves those parts out. And yeah, makes it look like only those banks were funding the Bolshevik Revolution, which is absolutely not true, as said before. In his book, Anthony C. Sutton, for example, also leaves out the fact that the Soviets had their own banks, starting with the Roscombank, which was founded 1922. Then they moved to the Wneshtorgbank, which was founded 1924. And this was finally fusioned or united with the gosbank, which was founded by the Soviets in 1921 already in October. Parts of the Russian Bolshevik funding come from there too. Other parts come from Germany or Europe. And most of it comes from Russia itself after the Bolsheviks confiscated the riches. The book just leaves large parts of history out. Most of the sources also make no sense and are not further explained. Most of the sources come from something called EBIT. And I tried to Google this, but I don't find anything of value. And as I said, it's not further explained. I find this rather dubious and not really trustworthy. So this whole claim is bullshit. And anyone who cites Anthony C. Sutton and his books as a source has obviously never read them himself and never done a real research, because it's basically incomplete history and he just leaves the vital parts of history out and then interprets some wild theories into it. Basically, he's a conspiracy theorist and just makes bullshit up by leaving important parts of history out. So basically, it's just bullshit. And there's not much else to say, other than that I put all the sources of my own research in the description. So peace out.